Marhaba, and hello to all our friends around the world, friends of the Palestinian cause and their pursuit for justice. Today's February 1st, 2023. I'm Dr. Jack Dempsey, an American writer and historian living in Crete these days, and with me is my friend Muhammad Jihad Ismael from Gaza, also a writer and historian. We always put our most urgent message first, the Palestinian Gazan situation and what you can do, because it's the most intelligent question I think that might follow from what we're talking about. Gaza now is a 15 years lockdown prison, 75 years of refugees, including Muhammad's grandparents. His three young children have never known freedom. Today, maybe there's 8 hours of electricity for you, no clean water, but there are swimming pools in Israeli suburbs not far from Gaza itself. If you're hungry, you can go out and compete with 2.5 million people and meet up with the 12,000 people or so who are supposed to be fed each day from one truck. You will pay Israeli taxes. You will pay taxes to Hamas, your government in Gaza, which does worse than nothing for you. And you will pay to the oligarchs who raise the prices for their own profit on everything. By the way, if you need a hospital or medicine or vitamins, not very likely, not very likely. There's places are bombed out, ruin, and a prison. And there is no plan for the 2.5 million Palestinians living there, except to silence and to kill the resistance. So you might say, what can I do? Two things: your own government, write, contact, email, phone your own government to try to change the policies that validate and sustain apartheid in Zionist Israel. Practice BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions. A friend of mine just recently showed me where he can buy Palestinian olive oil online, and that's a good thing. So I hope you'll look that up. The other thing we call family to family. These are friendships that empower people of the West and around the world, really, to help Palestinian families directly. No banks involved, no government NGOs. This is direct contact with real Palestinian people, children, families, and you can enjoy directly helping them any way you want to. Muhammad and I met via a book I had published. We became friends. We started sending many a little money via Western Union for vitamins, medicine, baby milk for about a year for his two beautiful young daughters. And now we're helping them to improve the conditions of their living at their house. So don't let stereotypes stop you from reaching out directly. There will be not one bit of waste. And as you'll see in our blog, Jack Dempsey Writer at WordPress.com, Jack Dempsey Writer at WordPress.com, you'll see the photographs of the work that is going on and lots of beautiful photographs of Muhammad's beautiful family. You will see directly the results of the help that you extend. So we really hope you'll do that. And thank you for listening to our perennial message. Muhammad, how are you? I hear that Israel, after opening the floodgates of their dams 3 weeks ago during a great rainstorm, the water flowed down the wadis toward the Mediterranean, hitting Gaza along the way, and four people lost their lives. In the midst of all the new tumult, it's horrible, the violence that's going on in Palestine right now. They were flying low jets right over your rooftops for a day or two. And if you've never been underneath a jet, when it suddenly comes over the horizon, roars like the end of the world is about to happen and leaves you standing there stunned until the next one. They also put tanks and machine guns around the borders of Gaza and were firing indiscriminately during the night just to keep people terrorized. So these are the kinds of things, the kinds of micro, or they're big, but aggressions that Zionist Israel is committing on a daily basis. Our ambassador, Mr. Blinken, was just over there and he told everybody to calm down, to de escalate the situation. I didn't catch whether or not he asked the settlers, the settler colonialists who are stealing Palestinian land and acting so violently toward them, to settle down. Didn't seem to happen. Mohammed, tell us about how it's going in Gaza this week, how you and your family are feeling in the midst of all this, and anything else you'd like to share.
Hello, brother. Uh, Thank you for this opportunity. I am happy to be speaking with you and with our friends. The situation here in Gaza these days, we have cold weather, we have raining, but we are fortunate because we haven't the floods like what happened last month.
And last
Uh,
year too, there are photos of it that you took at our blog, Jack Dempsey Writer at WordPress.com. Look back in the list of articles, and you'll see pictures of the streets absolutely inundated, children trying to get to school.
exactly, exactly. Uh, as usual, every winter Gaza situation is a disastrous situation because streets are full of mud, full of floods. You cannot leave your house. You cannot move. Electricity is shut down for a continuous 30, 40, 60 hours. Uh, the situation is very, very bad in winter. And of course, as you know, all the time, Gaza borders are surrounded with a forest of tanks and guns. It's a forest, you know. Even one single bird cannot escape from Gaza to the outside. If this bird try to fly out of Gaza, directly the Israeli anti-missile system will intercept him. So the situation is very bad, and people nowadays are very, very sad due to what happened recently in West Bank. 9 people were killed. Too much people were wounded.
During the raid on Jenin,
Some,
another raid on
yeah, yeah,
Jenin.
exactly. Some of the victims are old women and the children. So directly, people here in Gaza felt sorrow for what happened, and their reaction was very, very depressed.
And now it's a complete toss up as to what is to happen next. As you've often said, understandably, the people of Gaza are prostrate. They're almost hopeless. They feel completely powerless. And that is definitely a result of the Israeli policy under which there is no policy, there is no plan. They have no idea what they're going to do with 2.5 million people that are locked into this nightmare. So no wonder people are feeling so hopeless that they'll turn to almost anything to try to change the situation. So now we're saying, is there going to be another intifada? Is there going to be another uprising? What else can Palestinian people do? What else can they do? Do they talk about that, Muhammad?
I don't think we are going to make a new intifada because people are very, very destroyed. They cannot find their daily meals, their daily medicine, their daily electricity. They are living inside a siege. They cannot travel. They cannot go out of the borders. I think the people of Gaza are very, very, very tired. For sure, they cannot make any kind of intifada. Unfortunately, also our politicians, most of them have lost the compass. They doesn't know the directions that they should walk in.
Elections
Uh,
have not been allowed for 16 years.
exactly, exactly, exactly. And also we have another problem. Our Arab friends who should be our allies. Unfortunately, most of them became friends with Israel, and now they are making a similar announcements like Mr. Blinken's one. They are saying the same thing like Mr. Blinken. They are blaming the sieged, repressed people of Gaza and West Bank, and they are praising Israel and saying that Israel is the victim of the
Mr. Blinken,
Palestinian
Mr.
terrorism.
Blinken's exact words were this killing of, I think it was 9 or 15, there were a number of Israelis murdered, which is terrible. Mr. Blinken called this an attack on the civilized world. I suppose everybody, you don't need to be an English major, but everybody will notice that this casts the Palestinian world as uncivilized. He expressed no sadness, no condemnation at all for the needless, excessive force and killings in Jenin. But he walked around with his heart on his sleeve in Israel for those victims. We're only seeing more of the same, Muhammad.
Yeah, Mr. Blinken wanted to say that the Israeli people are the civilized nation or the civilized people, but in the other hand, we are the people who are riding the camels, the primitive, the uncivilized people. Of course, I think it's a sort of discrimination to say this
Of course.
racist, to say this racist announcement. Yeah, I think if we have brave Palestinian politicians and leaders, I think this man should be presented into the Lahai court because he is making a racist declarations against the Palestinian people. He is saying that we are uncivilized people.
Goyim is their word. If
Goyim.
you're an
Yeah,
insider and a believer or
yeah,
Jewish, they
yeah. I
call
will take.
everybody else in the world Goyim. This means
Yeah,
a two-legged animal that was born and exists only for the purpose of being the slaves and
I
servants
will
of the
take.
chosen
Yeah,
people.
yeah. I will take Mr. Blinken back to the history of Palestine, to the history that he doesn't know. The first cinema in the Middle East was built in Joppa, the Palestinian city. The first newspaper was printed in Palestine, in Jerusalem. Of course, he doesn't know that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Palestine has a very, very long history since so many thousands of years. I want to remind him with the Jewish immigration from Europe to Palestine in the year 1947, 1948, when the Israeli migrants used to come aboard the ships from Europe to Palestine. When they used to arrive to the Palestinian shore, they were uh, given some medicine or some material like the DDT to kill the insects that are existed
Yes,
in their hair
yes,
and
yes.
in their clothes because they had a lot of dirt. So they used to throw them with the dust of DDT. So who is the civilized and who is the uncivilized? I think it's a racist declaration from Mr. Blinken.
Well, it's funny in a way that his name comes up as a professional liar, that our program today talks about constant lying, constantly lying. Do you have a conscience? And what are the consequences of both? To refresh your memory, Muhammad, last time we took a close look at the Old Testament and at the Quran for their advice and their blessing on how different peoples must interrelate and interact. We found that the Old Testament has an explicit explicit, unambiguous program of separating itself somehow from the general population of the world and to exterminate it. To exterminate it. That's their word. In the Quran, however, we see that people are told by their God to live and share the world in peace. This is a sacred duty, but you act against wrongs, you act against attacks and threats. So we found that both texts and traditions have a conscience, a clear awareness that there are norms of peace, options, and choices around times of conflict, and that the exercise of conscience, a living dedication to the truth and justice, can offer everybody hope, the one thing they don't have much anymore, to correct the hideous human mistakes that drive the Zionist apartheid regime. Muhammad, any reflections, further thoughts on that analysis that we presented to people as careful scholars, combing out the language to see what it really says? And there we are. Have you had any further thoughts about all that? Because you mentioned that the regime in Israel now openly cites the Old Testament and the Torah, as they call it, to justify and, quote, explain what they're doing.
Yes, brother. The currently government in Israel is an extremist government, and it is an ultra-orthodox religious government. They are calling for the literal application of Torah texts. They are calling for the literal application. So you have to apply Torah in your policies, in your behavior, literally, letter by letter.
And the word they
So
use is herem. The Hebrew word is herem.
exactly,
It's the ban, the curse of their God on other people and their way of life and their threatening to teach you anything. Ironically, when the first Jewish immigrants began to arrive in Palestine coming from Europe, they knew nothing about farming. They were coming from cities. It was the Palestinians who fed them and housed them and clothed them and taught them to work the land. And now all of a sudden we're told that, oh, Palestine was an empty desert until the Hebrews and Israelis arrived, and only now is it fruitful because we are so high tech and advanced. Well, that's a complete inversion of the historical truth. Now, I'd like to point out for the audience's sake and to push our discussion along, by definition, a lie is a false account of the facts. But there are reasons for the old saying that the truth will out. The truth will come out and speak. Lies are very fragile. They can be broken open easily. They are inventions. But the reality, you and me, Muhammad, other people, Jews and Arabs and Palestinians, this is a reality in our common midst. It's alive and it remains forever. Reality speaks and contradicts the lie. Muhammad, the Old Testament clearly says the Canaanites and Palestinians must be removed one way or the other, but it never explains why. Why, not without a blanket, generic condemnation from a God, an obviously hateful racial caricature that we showed also last time from the Bible. These are both forms of lies. What to you and the Palestinians drives apartheid? Why do they do this? What is behind the slow conquest and dispossession of the Palestinians? How do you explain it?
unfortunately, let me continue, brother, my last answer for the last question.
Of course.
I was saying that the contemporary government in Israel is a very, very repressive and very extremist government. They are calling for the literal application of Torah. Now they are calling for establishing a total Jewish state. This is totally against the so-called democratic state. So all the minorities will be repressed, will be neglected, and some voices inside this government is calling to throw the Arabs out the state of Israel. We have to throw them out. Maybe we can throw them to Jordan, to Lebanon, to West Bank, to PA territories, but we don't need them here because this state should be a purified state, should be inhabited only by the Jewish people. So
That
all the
is the
goyim
word, exclusive.
should be
Only the Jewish
yes,
people shall have rights and
yes,
possession of this land.
yes, yes, yes.
This is
Of
what they
course.
say.
It's it's a racist policy. They
So,
want to
Mohammed,
expel.
in explaining why they do this, you referred to their use of and quoting the Old Testament, the Torah, the Bible, right? But let's put the Bible aside for a moment. I don't think anybody really feels that there's much of a God there, okay? That he's jealous, that is insecure, vengeful, cruel, demanding, fascistic, really. Let's put that aside for a moment and ask why you think these human beings called the Israelis, they are human beings. Why are they doing this to other human beings? Is there a psychological reason, an emotional reason? What is it that's driving this?
I think, brother, if we put Torah aside, I think it is the spirit of colonialism.
Hmm.
I think in the
Hmm.
previous centuries, I think we have this project was implemented in other continents and in other states. You can ask the South African what happened after the colonial, after the whites of Europe came and how they used to deal with the indigenous people, the black people in South Africa. And of course, you can link between this and between what happened with the Native Americans. What happened to them? Starting from the 16th century right now.
Hmm.
You can go back to history and you will find a lot of similar projects took place in other places.
Well, let me ask
So
you,
it's
would
the
you
spirit.
would you agree that when you say colonial, and now we're using the term settler colonial because they have their families with them. That's what it means, settler colonial. You are laying down roots. You are going to raise your family for the generations here in this place. Um, the fancy word there is settler colonial, but would you agree that you can call it more honestly, since we're talking about lies today, you could more honestly call it stealing? They are robbing you. They are taking your land and your wealth. They're taking your very future in the place where your past gave you your life. Is it not stealing? And that would be a hard thing to face about oneself. And so they lie all the time. Yes, I am stealing. You remember the man in Jerusalem? He was standing in the backyard of a Palestinian home. He's from Brooklyn or something. And the woman, the Palestinian woman, is saying, "This is my home. What are you doing? You can't take it away from me." And he says, "If I don't steal it, somebody else will."
Yes, yes,
Okay, yeah, I know you
yes.
know about that. So there must be a terrible burden somewhere inside them where they think, "I know this is wrong, but I'm going to do it anyway."
Uh, Brother, Israel from its beginning was based totally on lies, was totally based on lies. I think you have so many researches, so many books were published in that regard. You have the famous book of Roger Jaroudi, the French thinker, who wrote a very, very important book, was entitled uh, the legendaries who established Israel. Also, you have the invention of the Israeli people, the famous book of Shlomo Sand. Shlomo Sand, the Israeli historian,
Yes.
wrote this important book.
The invention of the Jewish people. The invention
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
Jewish people. Yes.
yeah. Now I am giving you only two examples, but if you search, you will find so many books were written about those legends, those lies. So Israel was not invented or built uh, on facts, but unfortunately on lies, and most
Well,
of them are historical lies.
now let's look under the stone. Let's turn the stone over and look under that, because I think what you're saying is correct. Even if you believe a lie, you still live in reality. You are still faced with reality, other people, different ways, maybe things you don't like. Okay, but isn't that part of life? Right? So you cannot impose your own God's justice on another people who don't believe in that God. You cannot invoke your own book to take another person's home and land. The common reality in our midst of all of us speaks and contradicts that lie. We know this is wrong. So you either come to terms with that lie and change your behavior, or you need a better lie, a more compelling lie. You need to escalate because you're afraid. No matter what you've been doing, reality just keeps talking back to you and telling you there's a problem here. You begin to live what courts of law call the demeanor of guilt. For example, in the murder of the journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, the excuse story keeps shifting. First, it was her own fault. Then, we don't know. Then, well, only we will investigate it. Then, a crossfire killed her. This has been disproven. And finally, well, Israel says it's possible she was murdered. Let's just hope the world forgets. That's their plan. Let's hope the world forgets. I wonder why that's an Israeli motto. If force fails, use more force. That's what's happening. So, one consequence of lying is violence. When you cannot face reality, you must try to make the world look like, resemble your lie. But that cannot work. It only leads to nihilism, burning the whole house down rather than learning something and being changed. So there's violence, first of all, and then it does something also to our very souls, whether you're Hebrew, Palestinian, American, whatever it might be. It does something to you. Have you noticed this in people, Muhammad?
Brother,
Constant lying.
let me shed the light on two important things.
Sure.
First, firstly, let me tell you that their brutality is exceeding what was mentioned in Torah. They doesn't only expel people out of their lands, out of their homes, but they follow them in their escaping way, and they kill them while they are escaping. Exactly like what happened with my ancestors who left Shaphir. My grandfather, my grandmother, who were eyewitnesses, who were inside the people who used to immigrate from Shaphir to Gaza, they told me in their testimonies that hundreds of people were killed because the Jewish militias used to follow up, and they used to follow up uh, until the outskirts of Gaza. They used to follow up, and they killed hundreds of people while they were escaping. So it's unbelievable brutality. This is number one. Number two, when we speak about lies and making the lies, I think that the Israelis are the masters of lying. Before Shirin Abu Akla, don't forget, we have the story of Rachel Corrie, the
Yes.
American activist who was killed by an Israeli bulldozer in
Yeah.
Rafah city.
She stood up,
Right now,
she stood in front of the bulldozer to protect to stop the destruction of a Palestinian home, and the bulldozer ran her over and crushed her to death.
exactly. Right now, they are hiding the truth. They doesn't give one declaration. Right now, they give too many declarations, and all of them are contradicting with each others. So they are lying in that regard. Also, if you go to the 6 day war, the war of 6 days, they used to storm the American ship USS Liberty. Right now, they are denying their responsibility and saying that maybe the Egyptians, maybe the USSR, the Soviet Navy, but we didn't make anything against the USS Liberty. So they are the masters of lying.
Well, there's another consequence to lying. Besides violence, which becomes necessary because you become enraged, you want to believe in a lie, it doesn't work. And so you want to force reality with ever more force to look like you wish it was. It's a completely nihilistic, psychopathic behavior. A person becomes a psychopath when they begin to hurt other people because of what they believe in their head. The second thing that happens is that it debauches our souls, our sensibilities. We become drunk with it. We become demoralized. We are less and less able to feel and think our way forward in a human way, less able to avoid the catastrophe that must come because the truth will out. The reality in our common midst will speak to us. Now, I look at America as an historian. We have about 7 minutes left, Muhammad. I'd like to just share something and then turn it over to you. I look at America as an historian, and since the settler colonialism began there, the Puritan and the puritanical society has taught its children and its citizens fear of nature, fear of the body, fear of different others. Their lessons were coming from the Bible, mostly from the Old Testament, no matter what they say about their love for Jesus of the New Testament. And the first attempt to exterminate Native Americans in what's called the Pequot War of 1637 was a fiasco, a complete failure, and it became a lie. The settler colonists built walls and made up laws that people must no longer even say the Pequot's name. We are going to erase them. You do not need walls and laws unless those others' actual presence fills you with anxiety and dread. Why? Because they're part of you and you want to get rid of them and you can't. They are parts of yourself you are trying to deny and forget, and they bring it out in you again and again because they're alive. What you do to them, you do to yourself. That is conscience. Right now, the children, the people, the hope, the human potentials of millions of people in Gaza, this is starving to death every day. And as we found in Israel's founding document, the Balfour Declaration, their legitimacy that they try so hard for Israel can only come from justice. So apartheid Israel faces a choice to reject the Old Testament's racist call for genocide and extermination and removal, or to go on guilty, haunted, lying, erasing Palestinians day by day, and drunk on their wealth. This is debauchery. This is idolatry, and there is no higher example thereof. You start to believe that your violence works, and the entire hideous cycle begins again. Constant lying becomes a self-destructive addiction, and you become like a drunken driver and a hazard to everybody around you. So let's imagine instead, to close on a hopeful note with 5 minutes left, that something new, something different, some gesture, something powerful and beautiful touches me, and I am changed by new experience, by new education, by close engagement with that which I do not well understand. The limited and frightened ego of me dies, but the living soul forgives and learns to live again. Muhammad, it seems apartheid Israel is doing all it can to provoke Palestinian violence. I think they think it is not working. Will this bring on a full war or the whole truth? How do you and the people around you now imagine and define what would liberation be for Palestinians? What would be some of the details or ideas of real liberation now for Palestinians? And my friend, the floor is yours.
Yes, brother. As I told you, people now are losing the compass. They doesn't have the ability to decide their direction, their track, where to walk, where to fight, where
How to
to
fix their
endeavor.
problems? How to fix their problems?
Exactly. I think Israel succeeded to make the Palestinians in this situation by putting them in this hardship. When you make the Palestinian starving, having this horrible amount of troubles in his daily life, of course he will be destroyed. He will not have the ability to think what he is going to do. So Israel
Happens every time.
succeeded. Yeah. For me, now I am as a historian and as a writer and as a researcher. Now, if you look to the majority of my daily time, my daily hours and minutes, the biggest majority of my daily time is going to how I will charge my batteries, how I will bring some bread, some uh,
Right.
some uh,
For your
some
family.
vegetables,
Yeah.
Okay, my boy uh, looks tired. He has some fever. Okay, what I will do? Everything here need money. So where I should take him to the pharmacy, to the clinic. If they ask me for like to buy antibiotic, do I have money or not? So shall I go to lend some to borrow some money from a neighbor, from a friend? So all the time, my concentration goes on how I can
Survive.
overcome my problems and my
Yes.
daily crisis. Yeah. So Israel has succeeded 100% in that regard. Uh, as I told you, people are destroyed. They haven't the compass to decide their direction, to decide their attitude. If you want to ask me about the Palestinian intellectuals, 2 days ago we had an assembly, and we used to gather with each other. We used to talk, to have like some sort of brainstorming
Okay.
of
We
what
have
we
one
are.
minute, Muhammad.
Yeah. Unfortunately, most of people doesn't have any hope for the future of the Palestinian cause. And I will tell you again and again, I think the military action will not achieve any kind of benefit.
I have to agree. I hope somehow that our programs together can add some momentum to the discovery, the rediscovery of a conscience, the rediscovery that your ideas have real consequences on people, and that we can perhaps promote a discussion that points to peace. Mohammed, thank you very much. Contact your government, practice BDS, and consider helping Palestinians directly. Look into family to family here below. Mohammed and everyone, until next time, peace to you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.